Good evening. This is your professor, Boreas Sachs. Well, Hesiod can seem overwhelming, especially when you read him for the first time. Perhaps because he has such a grand story to tell. It is nothing less than the entire history of the cosmos. But I would like for now to concentrate on the single character of Cronos, the Roman Saturn. He is certainly the most complex figure in Hesiod's Theogony, and the most important for the alchemists. At first, Gaia, or Mother Earth, is alone in the universe. Longing for company, she gives birth to Uranus, who then becomes her consort. They have several children, the Titans, who are so strong and fierce that their father is terrified and places them in a pit far, far beneath the surface of the earth. Mother Earth is appalled and descends to rescue her children and enlist them against their father. But only the youngest of them, Cronos, has the courage to challenge Uranus. As directed by Mother Earth, Cronos takes a gold sickle and lies in wait for his father, who comes to make love to Earth. Cronos ambushes and castrates his father, at which Uranus retreats into the sky. His blood or sperm falls into the ocean, at which Aphrodite, the Roman Venus, the goddess of love, emerges. Cronos then rules together with his consort Rhea, but hears a prophecy that he will be overthrown by his own children, the gods, whom he swallows as soon as they are born. Rhea hides one of her children, wrapping a stone in swaddling clothes and giving it to Cronos to swallow instead. She transports that child, the god Zeus, to the island of Crete, nourished by a bee and raised by a fairy goat. Zeus returns and conquers his father, forces his father to vomit out the gods and the stone, and once again consigns Cronos to the abyss of Tartarus. The stone became identified by alchemists with the philosopher's stone, which could turn ordinary metals into gold. Some scholars connect Cronos with the biblical Moloch, a Carthaginian deity to whom, according to both Roman sources and the Bible, children were sacrificed. Cronos may have been a figure of horror, at times even identified with the devil, but he was also the courageous defender of his mother and his siblings. As an embodiment of cosmic forces, he can no more be hateful than the sea or the stars. In Works and Days, Hesiod wrote that the age when Saturn ruled was a golden age, a time of peace and harmony. The Greek poet Pindar later told that Zeus had released Cronos from Tartarus and set him to rule over the kingdom of Elysium, the abode of the just in the life beyond. The Romans conflated Cronos with Saturn, an agricultural deity, and his festival, the Saturnalia, became perhaps the most celebrated Roman holiday, eventually the origin of Christmas. It was a time when all roles were reversed and masters would wait upon their slaves. It was known for drunken revelry, but might also be celebrated with decorous banquets and discussions. Essentially, it was conceived as a return to the primeval conditions before the order of the world was established. This late medieval print shows Cronus, Saturn, in his playful, if perhaps somewhat frenzied spirit. And this is the beginning of the age of Saturn, the golden age as painted by the Renaissance artist Sandro Botticelli. It shows the goddess of love, Venus, the Greek Aphrodite, rising from the waves after the sea has been impregnated with the sperm of Saturn's father Uranus. But it seems remarkably serene for such a tale of mayhem. It has the first, and perhaps the finest, representation of a female nude other than Eve in the Renaissance. On the left are the forces of nature represented by the west wind Zephyrus with his consort, the goddess Flora. On the right is civilization, symbolized by the grove and the nymph who rushes to clothe the goddess. The shell on which the goddess stands is a symbol of both chastity and fertility. Mollusks were believed to be fertilized by dew, and pearls, symbols of feminine splendor, were believed to be among their offspring. Following the Renaissance philosopher Marsilio Ficino, Botticelli softened the violence and sexuality of the Greco-Roman myths by interpreting them as allegories for natural and spiritual processes. And finally, we come to Melancholia by Albrecht Dürer. Saturn was a god of melancholy, but for the thinker Cornelius Agrippa of Nettesheim, melancholy was a prelude to inspiration. That is at least psychologically valid, since near despair, if it does not sap our energies, is often followed by flashes of insight and discovery. Agrippa called Saturn a great, wise, and understanding lord, begetter of silent contemplation. The figure in the foreground is perhaps an alchemist, but could conceivably be Saturn himself. He is dark and intense, yet thoughtful. The lamb on the right represents innocence, while the white spear beside it represents purity. The ladder in the background, with 7 steps represents the stages of sublimation in the ascent of base metals to gold and of the soul to wisdom. Scattered around are the tools of alchemy, geometry, and architecture. And on the wall is a magic square. The hourglass is an attribute of Saturn. The child, the rainbow, and the comet symbolize new beginnings. But for melancholy to become a source of creativity and not simply a drain on our energy requires a very robust sense of confidence. Artists and thinkers of the Renaissance had that. But do we? Thank you for listening.